Sonia's dream of becoming a doctor was shattered 6 months after her father's demise. Her father's brother, Uncle Matthias, scrambled over all the lands belonging to her late father, Mr. Mark. Both her Uncle Matthias and her late father Mark inherited large portions of land from her grandfather. While her uncle sold her own and ate the money, her late father Mark used his own portion of land for plantations. He planted palm trees, cashew trees, pineapples, plantain on his own portion of the land. It wasn't up to 2 years after turning his land into plantation when he began to reap plenty harvest from it. He sold his products at the market in the big city with the money he made. He was able to build a good house, buy a private car, and send his only child to the best school around. Mr. Mark's plantation made him the envy of many of his kinsmen. "This man has too much sense," they would often say behind his back. We were selling off our lands, and he was busy planting plantations on his, and now our lands are gone, and his land is there with him, and it makes him money. With the money he made from his sales at the big city market, Mr. Mark was able to send his only daughter Sonia to the prestigious National University to study medicine and surgery. At Mr. Mark's demise, Emika and Eboob laughed her to scorn. "You think you are someone because you gained admission into the medical school? This is to teach you, your mother, and even your late father, a lesson all of you can never forget. Your late father thinks he has land and plantations. He doesn't know that he has nothing without a male child. Now let's see who's got all the land and plantations," said Emeka. "It's the person who has the male child, of course," answered Eboob as they bursted out in laughter. Sonia watched her cousins in horror. She had always known that they hated her late father, but now she understands their level of hatred. Every night, Sonia laid next to her mother in their room. They would cry and cry for the injustice they were suffering from her uncle, Mr. Matthias, and his 2 grown sons, Emeka and Ebube. "Don't worry, the God of justice will fight our case," Sonia will always say whenever she had the opportunity to reply her cousins, Emeka and Ebube. Sonia needed to return back to medical school as soon as possible. She was a brave girl and was determined to see justice restored to her and her mother. One day, Sonia's mother summoned courage and went to the king's palace to report her husband's brother, Mr. Matthias. She was at the palace of King Charles Eze seeking justice. That day, Sonia fasted and prayed to God. She has always believed that God will use the king to restore justice to her and her mother. That day, Sonia did not eat from morning to evening. She prayed that God will fight on their behalf through the king of Umudibia kingdom. "Dear God," Sonia prayed, "you are the God of justice, the father of the fatherless and the husband to the widow. Arise, Almighty God, and use the king of Umudibia kingdom, the King Charles Eze, to fight on our behalf. This way, justice will be restored to us, and glory will be given to your name." Sonia was, however, devastated. When her mother returned home, her mother's face was sad and her eyes red from crying. "Welcome, Mum," Sonia greeted cheerfully, trying to take the air lighter. Just as she went forward to hug her, Juliana, Sonia's mother, broke down in tears. Sonia held her mother tightly as both of them let their tears freely for a moment. "The king would not allow me to talk. He had already taken sides with your uncle Matthias. He said that all my husband plantations rightfully belongs to his brother and his sons. Oh, on my way back, one of the king's security guard ran after me. He told me how he overheard Matthias discussing with the king on how he will settle him with huge amount if he took sides with him to take the plantations from us." Mrs. Juliana crossed her hands on her head and let out a cry. "Mum, it's okay. If there's life, there's hope. A living dog is better than a dead lion." "It's okay, Mama. Just be strong. I just lost my father. I don't want to lose you too," Sonia said. Juliana sat up on the sofa, wiping her eyes with the edge of her wrapper. "My dear, I will live and see you become a doctor." To this, Sonia replied and said Amen. 3 days later, Sonia was at the National University to do her studies. Sonia was already in her 4th year, before her father's sudden demise. A lot of advice were coming from family and friends. "Go hire a lawyer," one of her friends suggested, but with which money, Sonia thought. Even if she had some money on her, she would rather use the money to pay for her school fees than to hire a lawyer. The case will delay in court, and her school fees would still not be paid. She thought. A lot of thoughts went through her mind all through the day. At night, however, just as she was about to sleep, she received a call. It was from one of her friends, whose parents are based in Cass Island. In Cass Island here, it's called Downtown Supermarket. They are opening another branch. Their salary is really good. They pay their attendants up to 50K, and it's even close to school. Who knows? You might save enough money to go back to medical school if they employ you. Sonia was excited at the news of such an offer. She took a motorbike right away, and just in no time, she was in Cass Island. She applied for the post of an attendant. If she gets it, she plans to stay around the island, rent a small room, go to work and save some money. She wanted to return back to medical school. Sonia had always had the dreams of becoming a doctor one day. That way, she can help many sick patients by caring for them. At Downtown Supermarket, Cass Island, Sonia dropped her application letter for the post of an attendant. 3 days later, she was called for an interview. She passed the interview and got employed as an attendant at Downtown Supermarket. Sonia's joy knew no bound. With the little money her mama gave her, she paid for a tiny room. It was a small room with one window. She worked very hard cleaning the tiny dusty room. She cobwebbed, dusted, and cleaned the room to make it inhabitable. Sonia finally was able to make the room livable. She unpacked her bags, spreading her school mattress she'd brought from the hostel on the floor. As she unpacked her bags, she brought out the picture she took with her parents during her matriculation. She made some design on the wooden frame, repainting the frame with the inscription, "My dreams comes alive." The next morning she was off to work. It was the most beautiful morning she could remember. Her dreams, which was once dead, was beginning to come alive. Somehow, everything will fall into place, she promised herself. At the supermarket, she was very kind and attentive to customers. Despite her problems, she smiled warmly at every customer as they come into the supermarket. Downtown Supermarket Cass Island was a new branch of the company. Along with Sonia are some of the new attendants. One of them, Miss Ruth, stood out from the attendants because of her age. Miss Ruth should be in her early 60s, or so do Sonia think. She should be a little older than her own mother, Juliana. Sonia took a liking to Miss Ruth, not only because of her age, but because she seems to be a wise woman. Unlike most other workers who saw Miss Ruth as a failure, other workers saw her as a failure and will mock her behind her back. Old woman goes to work. They will call out behind her back. Some will laugh while others will make faces behind her back. "I wonder where she was when she's supposed to be working?" asked Mary. "She was sleeping," replied Gloria, "but now she's fully awake." That was how Mary and Gloria, the other two attendants, would make fun of Miss Ruth. Sonia, however, was the exact opposite. Every morning, without fail, Sonia will arrive the office early. She will quickly clean her portion, along with Miss Ruth's own. Then she will work closely with her, helping her stack the goods properly on her own portion. Miss Ruth was always thankful to Sonia. "Sonia, my daughter, how can I thank you enough?" she would say, but Sonia would smile reassuringly to her. They jested as they worked along. Sonia always felt bad when she overheard the comments and mockery of other workers. One day she walked up to Mary and Gloria, demanding that they stop. "Where is your curtsy? Where is your respect?" Sonia demanded. They, however, laughed her to scorn. "Workman without pay, keep on fooling yourself. You are trying to help an old woman who forgot to help herself when she was young." Mary and Gloria were attendants, just like Sonia, but they always find pleasure gossiping on duty. The supervisors were not better either. They always talked to Miss Ruth rudely. One day, one of the supervisors, Miss Laritha, called out to Miss Ruth. "Hey you, come here," she commanded. "My eyes are on you. Make sure you don't steal anything from the counter. Because if you ever think of it, I am here to catch you." Both Sonia and Miss Ruth were baffled at the supervisor's words. "Are you here to supervise us or to suspect us?" Sonia demanded. "Hey, you church rat," Miss Laritha screamed. "And who told you? You can question your supervisor." "Today is Christmas for you. Next time you question me, I will give you a query. Each query takes away 10% from your salary, so be warned." Sonia could not put up with any cut in salary. She avoided Miss Laritha while also helping Miss Ruth all she could. After 6 months of working at Downtown Supermarket, it was time to be promoted. Sonia was very expectant, because if she gets promoted, that would mean an extra 20,000 on her salary. Her dreams of going back to school was even becoming more real. On the day of promotion, instead of their names, Mary and Gloria were announced. They gave Miss Loretha a bribe, and the next morning the promotion result was announced, and both Mary and Gloria were promoted. The rest of the staff cheered and clapped for a promotion well deserved. Who will promote those two riffraff that doesn't know how to walk their way through the cooperate ladder? Miss Loretha said as she struck conversations with her co-supervisors from the other departments. Sonia was not happy that there was no promotion for her. In the whole of downtown supermarket, Cass Island branch, she was always the first to come to work. Apart from that, many of the customers have given a very high review of her. However, she enjoys the person and company of Miss Ruth as though she were her own mother. Lately too, Miss Ruth had always brought for her an extra cooler of food every day she comes to the office. Sonia no longer bothers about her feeding, as the extra cooler Miss Ruth brings every day is enough for her. It enables her save even more money at the end of the month. But come to think of it, the food Miss Ruth always brings for Sonia is always rich, like the food cooked in a palace. Lately, because of the quality of food Miss Ruth brings for her, Sonia had found herself wondering if Miss Ruth actually needed to be working as an attendant in downtown supermarket. It was a Monday, and Sonia had reached her workplace as usual. She cleaned her portion as well as Miss Ruth's. She was already stacking her goods on her portion when she noticed that Miss Ruth had not come to work. Miss Ruth had never been late to work. Though Sonia is always the first staff to arrive work at downtown supermarket, yet Miss Ruth always arrives early as well. That whole day, Sonia kept wondering what had gone wrong and why Miss Ruth was not at work. Her phone too was switched off the whole day. Sonia was restless all day. Could it be that Miss Ruth was sick or something? She also went to the manager to ask if Miss Ruth had called the office. "Excuse me, did you by any means hear from Miss Ruth?" She found herself asking all day. While some said no, we haven't seen her, others on the other hand added some derogatory remarks saying, "Oh, that old woman. She should go and rest, please. We are tired of seeing her old face. I mean, how many of her age mates work as attendants? She shouldn't come back here with that, her old face." "Don't mind her," added Mary. "She's been sleeping all the while she was young, and suddenly at old age, she woke up and realized she needed to work." A lot more others laughed at Sonia, looking out for an old cargo. "You won't go and do something useful with yourself?" Sonia was worried, very worried. She kept on calling Miss Ruth's number, but her number was switched off. By the third day, Sonia had resorted to prayers. She even called her mother at the village, who has heard a lot about Miss Ruth. "Mama, please pray for Miss Ruth," Sonia said. "She's not been to work for 3 days now, and her phone had been switched off. Please pray for her. Nothing bad should happen to her." On the fourth day, exactly an hour after Sonia arrived work, she was busy stacking provisions on her counter when a man on black suit approached her. "Hello, Ma," the man greeted. "Are you Sonia Mark?" "Yes, of course I am. How may I help you?" asked Sonia. "I have been sent by the general manager to come and pick you." Sonia was surprised, but deep down within her she knew she had not stolen anything from downtown supermarket and needed not to fear. Just last week, her supervisor, Miss Loretha, had been arrested and taken to police custody because she stole a valuable from the supermarket and was caught. There was no evidence from the CCTV camera, but the wristwatch she stole was found, strapped tightly inside her panty liner. So how did they know she stole something? Who saw her? Nobody knows. "Just follow me. The general manager is outside the gate." Sonia's mind raced. Is it a promotion or an investigation in connection to Loretha last week's saga? She followed slowly, still pondering, but a clear conscience fears no accusation. So there she was before the general manager. She had not met him in person, just seen his portraits on the wall. His office is at the main branch of downtown supermarket, located at the mainland. There at the gate, the general manager was in the car and they were waiting. The young man on black suit led the way, opening the car for her. It was a black SUV. She entered the car, greeted the general manager calmly. He greeted back with a warm voice. "Hey Sonia, how are you?" His bass voice resounded. Sonia was surprised. Does he know her from somewhere? "Fine, sir," Sonia managed to answer. Her breath was fast. Her mind couldn't comprehend what's going on. Could it be a transfer? The car drove off. In less than 10 minutes, they were in front of a large compound. The security opened the gate, saluting the car. In front of the compound was seated two mansions, an architectural masterpiece that exhumed class and sophistication. The car pulled over at the garage, then almost immediately a familiar face opened the front door of the house and approached the garage. Sonia wiped her eyes to make sure she's not dreaming. Could it be that Miss Ruth lives here? How can she be doing such a menial job at downtown supermarket when she lives in this kind of mansion, Sonia thought. Miss Ruth came through the front door. She had changed a lot. She went toward the car and hugged Sonia, who was still mesmerized by the beauty of such a compound. Miss Ruth took Sonia by hand into her living room. Come in, Sonia, my dear, Miss Ruth said. Miss Ruth, please can you explain to me what's going on here? Calm down, Sonia, Miss Ruth said. Please come over to the dining. Let's eat something. At the dining, Sonia still couldn't believe her eyes. She was still in wonder. Miss Ruth, is this your house? Sonia continued to ask in disbelief. At the dining, the servant served them a sumptuous full-course meal. Sonia, however, wasn't enjoying her meals. It's me. Sonia, it's me, Miss Ruth said to Sonia, trying to reassure her. In the course of the meal, the general manager stepped in. He came over to greet Miss Ruth with a perk on her cheeks. That was when Miss Ruth introduced him to Sonia. Sonia, meet my son, Chidi. Sonia's eyes widened with more surprise, but things were beginning to make sense. Chidi sat down next to Sonia. He talked freely to her as though he had known her for months. But Sonia was just quiet, just like a spectator, awaiting more surprises. Sonia could not eat. Surprises were almost more than she could take. Miss Ruth noticed Sonia's demeanor. She walked over to where she was, taking her by hand to the living room. After they have settled into the soft sofa, Miss Ruth spoke up. I am the owner of Downtown Supermarket. It was a business I built together with my late husband. A year after my husband's demise, we decided to acquire the new branch at Cass Island. It was a big expansion, and a lot of money was sunk into the new project. My only son Chidi was too busy with the main branch on the mainland, so I had to volunteer to come and manage the Cass Island branch. But I decided that instead of coming in as a manager, I would rather come in as an attendant. That way, I could take the Cass Island team unawares. Did you remember the last week's saga with Miss Laretha, the supervisor? Miss Laretha has a way of stealing, such that the CCTV camera cannot capture her. My eyes, however, captured her. That was why the watch she stole was found right inside her panty liner where she had hidden it. So I came to the Cass Island branch to surprise my team of staff there. No one amongst them knows who I really am. But then I discovered you, Sonia, the girl with the heart of gold. And guess what, Sonia, my son saw those pictures we used to take together, and he told me he likes you, Miss Ruth said with a wink. At that moment, Chidi joined them at the living room. Mum, allow me to say my things with my own mouth. Sonia, I have really come to admire you. The kind of person you are, your beauty, your kindness. If you give me the chance to become part of your life, you will never regret it. Can we go out together this evening, to a more private place? Let's get to know each other better. Sonia was speechless. A date with the general manager? Miss Ruth, her co-worker, the owner of the company, and the mother to the general manager. Sonia was in tears. It was all too good to be true, but it wasn't a dream after all. She agreed to go on a date with Chidi. That evening, Chidi took Sonia to a quiet restaurant at the outskirts of Cass. At the restaurant, Sonia would occasionally pinch herself to make sure she was not dreaming. She was just trying to be her good self by showing courtesy and respect to an old employee, not knowing she's the owner of the company where she works, and now her only son is secretly in love with her. A month later, Chidi asked Sonia to marry him, and she happily agreed. She also made it known to Chidi that she will like to go back to medical school and complete her education. It will be my pleasure, Sonia. Look, God just brought you my way to make it super easy for me to find a wife. God bless the day you stepped your feet at Downtown Supermarket. It was at the general manager's wedding that things became clear to all the staff of Downtown Supermarket Cass Island. The old woman who used to work as the attendant was introduced as the owner of Downtown Supermarket and the mother of the general manager. The most surprising of it all was to see her co-worker Sonia as the bride. They were not just shocked, but speechless. How can we face this woman after all the trash we have said about her while she worked as an attendant? Mary said to her friend Gloria. After the wedding, a lot of air had been cleared. All that had talked rudely to Miss Ruth, all quickly retraced their steps. They all tried to outdo each other in showing her courtesy and respect. Miss Ruth only worked for 3 more months before retiring from managing the supermarket. She knows she now has not only a capable son, but also a capable daughter-in-law. After their wedding, her husband Chidi quickly swung into action, hired a lawyer, and took Sonia's uncle, Mr. Matthias, to court. There, at the High Court, they won the case against Mr. Matthias. Chidi went ahead to fence off all of Sonia's late father's plantations. Sonia's mother, Juliana, was overwhelmed with joy. All of her late husband's properties were restored to her. She started to harvest their farm produce and sell it at the big city, just as she always used to do with her late husband when he was alive. Sonia did not only go back to medical school and graduated as a doctor, but she lived a life of her dreams. All of her late father's properties were restored to her mother. She did not only get married to Chidi, but also joined in the family business, and together with her heartthrob, Chidi continued to expand their family business. Her friend, and now mother-in-law, was also available to give them the advice and guidance they needed. That was how the kind deeds of a poor medical student who was at the verge of dropping out of school changed her life forever. Hey friends, hope you enjoyed this story. What do you think of people who claim their late brother's properties because he has no male child and deprive his wife and children of their source of livelihood in the African society today? Share your thoughts with us on the comment section below and kindly subscribe as we bring you educative and interesting stories on African classic tales. Thank you so much for your love and support. We can't take it for granted. We love you so much.